What's up, guys, gals, non-binary pals, and none of the above? This is DL here, the Kirby Street League Season 2 draft analysis of my team, the Detroit Quagsires. Now, this season has already concluded. I was the champion of this season. So what I'm looking to do here is review this season and why it was a success and how you can emulate that success. And specifically for this draft, for this video, we're going to look at how this draft went down and how you can replicate this draft to some degree with your own drafts or replicate aspects of it. So for this draft, I wanted to do a strategy called reverse drafting. This is something I've heard Regulator talk a bit about. So basically, the plan is you go into the draft with the intentions of drafting a specific Pokemon in the later rounds that's usually highly undesirable to most teams. So this is going to be because the Pokemon has really big flaws and requires a lot of support in order to make that Pokemon be effective. So this is a really good strategy because you end up getting a Pokemon that fits your team and can do a lot of work on your team for a lower cost because it has a lot of support that goes into it. For example, Regulator employed this reverse draft strategy for his Yamega in Season 4 of the GBAD League. Yamega, being a bug flying Pokemon, has a 4 times weakness to Stealth Rock, so it requires a lot of good hazard control. And so Greg drafted a team that had good hazard control, try to take advantage of Yamega and make it be a great, choice specs, tinted lens, wall breaker, or even a speed boost sweeper if necessary. And so in the draft, what you want to do in order to make that Pokemon be effective, to make your target effective, is to spend your early draft picks picking the right support Pokemon for your target Pokemon, so that in return you can get a Pokemon that does wonders for your team for an affordable price. So going into this draft, there was one Pokemon that I really wanted to try. People told me they'd never seen it before. Apparently some people have used it now. Regulator is using it right now in one of the leagues that he's uploading. And that Pokemon is on the next slide. Yeah, so my goals. Yeah, it's a reverse draft, but you also need to draft to your play style. It's really important to draft how you play. So I want to draft really dynamic and versatile Pokemon that'll encourage and enable me to build creatively. I want to draft a team with strong sustain, so I don't just get chipped down and worn down. I wanted to draft setup options, and I wanted to draft strong priority. So there's priority moves that are actually good on Pokemon that you'll actually bring. This is really good, I think, because it discourages setup Pokemon from your opponent's team. It can really help stop you from getting swept. And overall, I just enjoy having answers to the problems. Like, I never in prep when I feel like, oh, well, this Pokemon just beats me and there's nothing I can do about it. I always want to be able to have that tech, that Pokemon that can handle anything my opponents can throw at me. So my target Pokemon, the Pokemon I always wanted, is my boy, Mega Abomasnow. So the way Kirby Street League's tiering system works for Megas is so that it tries to encourage diversity in the Megas that people draft. And so you get extra points for drafting bottom tier Megas, low tier Megas, including Mega Abomasnow. So I get 80 extra points from drafting Mega Abomasnow. So that's that value I was talking about. So this was an ideal league to draft Mega Abomasnow and try it out. So what is it about Mega Abomasnow that makes it so that people don't usually want to draft it? Well, it's really slow. Its base speed is 30. It's got a 2 times weakness to Stealth Rock. And its defensive typing is awful. I think it's the third worst potential typing a Pokemon could have defensively, which is Grass Ice. It's got 7 weaknesses, including a 4 times weakness to Fire. So it's weak to things like Flying, Bug, Poison, Steel, Rock, Fighting, and Fire. Yeah, that's all 7. So you got a lot of things to take in mind. You're probably going to be taking a lot of damage because it's got so many weaknesses, especially that huge 4 times Fire weakness. That's something you got to check so that people just don't throw HP Fire on everything and destroy you. But what does Mega Abomasnow bring? It's got all these weaknesses, but what does it actually bring to the table? Well, it has fantastic stab priority Ice Shard, which is a 40 base power priority move, coming off that massive 132 base attack stat. It's a very strong priority, something I was looking for going into this draft. And it's a really powerful mixed attacking wall breaker. It's got those 120 base power stab wood hammers coming off its attack stat, and a 100% accurate 110 base power stab blizzard thanks to its ability snow warning, making blizzard 100. Blizzard never misses, not in hail. And it's coming off of also a 132 special attack. So you don't know which side of the spectrum this thing's going to be hitting on. It can hit on both. Really difficult if people just have a dedicated special wall, a dedicated physical wall. Mega Abomasnow can break those. It's got fantastic coverage moves for hitting things like steel types and fire types that would want to take something like a blizzard or a wood hammer. You got access to earthquake, rock slide, focus blast, shadow ball, and hidden power coverage for things like scissors. You might run hidden power fire. And that snow warning ability also provides weather control, which is something people don't really consider often in draft until you're about to get swept by an Excadrill or a Mega Swampert. You can help take away people's weather control. You get that nice chip damage with the hail on opposing Pokemon. You can also empower a Slush Brush Sweeper on your own team, be able to get that, ×2 speed and hail, try to sweep people. It's also a really good sweeper under Trick Room, taking advantage of that low base 30 stat. Not many Pokemon are going to be slower than that, especially if you're fighting a more offensive team. A Trick Room Mega Abomasnow can just tear through one of those teams under Trick Room. And it does have a really good setup option in Sword Stance. Sword Stance, Wood Hammer, Ice Shard, Earthquake. It's a really common set. Ice Shard is often good enough to take care of the things that are going to resist your Wood Hammers. And then Earthquake will do things like smack a Steel type or a Fire type. And Mega Abomasnow in this particular draft also just brought me a lot of extra points for free picks, so I could get some really good Pokemon to support it with. Here's its base stats on the corner here. You see really nice bulk as well. And it's got those great 132 attacking stats, but 90 HP, 105 defense, 105 special defense. This thing's going to be chewing some hits, including some fire hits, believe it or not. But this thing will take super effective hits like it's nothing. Especially if you're running a Trick Room set, so you got like maybe max HP. This thing, it's going to take some mons down with it. So Mega Abomasnow, as we talked about, has some weaknesses, so it needs some support. As we mentioned, it's weak to Stealth Rock, so you need some good hazard control to keep away Stealth Rocks, to make sure that this Pokemon lasts, doesn't only get to come in a couple times. It also needs a really good fire resist and check to fire types, since it does have that 4x fire weakness. And you need speed control. Since Mega Abomasnow is really slow, you're going to want things like Trick Room or a Slush Rush Sweeper, so that you can control the tempo even though your Mega is really slow. You also need a really good answer to fighting types. Fighting types can be really problematic for a lot of teams in Draft League format because they have such fantastic coverage options. A lot of fighting types get things like Knockoff, Stone Edge, Poison Jab to hit things like flying types, fairy types, ghost types. So I wanted to have really solid answers to fighting types. And I also wanted a really nice complementary ground type to pressure steels and fire types that resist Mega Abomasnow's dual step. And overall, I want really solid teammates that are consistent and shore up Mega Abomasnow's weaknesses. Mega Abomasnow, as we mentioned, has really bad defensive typing. It can often be more niche on teams. So if they have really solid Pokemon to support it, things that can come every week if Mega Abomasnow maybe doesn't have a matchup, that's a really good thing. So we can use Mega Abomasnow's niche to our advantage while still having good rosters to bring each week. So my first pick, I think I had like 4th overall in the draft. I got the Pokemon that I thought just embodied everything I wanted in a Pokemon. Mew. So I got Deshaun the Mew, named after my homie Deshaun, and I'm using Shiny Mew. It's the most versatile Pokemon in the game. It's got Defog, it's got Trick Room, 2 of the things that Mega Abomasnow really needs. Great answer to opposing fighting types. It's also the only non-ice type to get Aurora Veil, which could be really cool to set up dual screens under Hail that my Mega Abomasnow sets. It gets a lot of really cool utility moves like Will-O-Wisp, Stealth Rock, Thunder Wave, Heal Bell, Roar, all sorts of things. setup moves like Nasty Plot, Rock Polish, Calm Mind, Bulk Up. It's got reliable recovery and soft boiled and recover, so it has that sustain. And a really cool aspect of Mew and what makes it a really effective Pokemon is not just that it's got base 100s across the board, but specifically that base 100 speed. Makes it a fantastic wall and support Pokemon because you're going to be able to outspeed a lot of the wall breakers in the game that would ordinarily be able to take down bulk really easily. You're going to outspeed things like Nidokings, Tyrantrums, and such. You're able to burn stuff, Thunder Wave it, fire off really good coverage moves that you have for him. And Mew is also a really great Z-move user, which would make it less vulnerable to knockoff if it's holding a Z-Crystal, because then those can't be knocked off. So it helped me a lot against fighting types. So I thought Mew was a really great start to the draft. And second off, I got Togekiss. So Togekiss is a fairy flying type, which is a 4x fighting resist. We're starting off this really strong anti-fighting theme. It also gets Defog, which is nice to keep away rocks, even though it is weak to rocks itself. It's got really cool utility moves like Wish, Heal Bell, Trick, and Thunder Wave. I think having access to Wish on your team is really valuable, especially if you have Pokemon that can get worn down over time. And it does have recovery in Soft Boiled and Roost as well. Trick is also a really nice option. Things like Scarf Togekiss can definitely put in work. Togekiss is one of the best Thunder Wave users. You can Paraflinch people with that Serene Grace Air Slash with the Thunder Wave. It does have setup and Nasty Plot. It's really good, especially if you are running that Thunder Wave set. So a lot of people are very weak to flying spam, bird spam as they call it. So you can often run a sort of mono attacking set like Thunder Wave, Nasty Plot, Air Slash, Roost. It also has really good coverage moves. This Pokemon's really dynamic. You can run all sorts of setups with it. It's got things like Flamethrower, Aura Sphere, Psychic, Shadow Ball, Grass Knot. So if you want to hit something, you can definitely custom tailor your Togekiss to take it out. It's got a really good speed tier 80, another fast wall support. I really like these kinds of Pokemon. It also has really capable offenses. Like, I don't like having Pokemon that are setup fodder, as they call it. And Togekiss is anything but that. It has 120 special attack. Could very well be threatening you with a Thunder Wave. You're not going to try to set up on a Togekiss on most anything. And it synergizes really well with my Mew as a defensive core because it has a really great Dark and Bug Resist, which are two of Mew's 3 weaknesses. And it's really able to switch into moves like Knock Off and Scald with relative ease. Knock Off and Scald are some of the most notoriously difficult moves to switch into in the Draft League format, especially since Mega Abomasnow being my Grass type. If I'm running a physical Mega Abomasnow, I don't really want to take a Scald because I could get burned. And if he's got Rocks up, then I don't want to switch into Rocks. I'm not that great of a knockoff resist as a Mega. So Togekiss is really complementing those Pokemon very well. So next off, I got Heatran, Stray the Heatran. It's a Fire Steel type with the Flash Fire ability, making it immune to fire. Heatran is the Pokemon that you need to draft if you are going to draft Mega Abomasnow, hands down. It has fantastic defensive synergy with Mega Abomasnow, covering many of its weaknesses. Heatran's immune to fire, immune to poison, resist flying, 4x resist bug, 4x resist steel. Like, this thing is taking nothing from any of those attacks. And Mega Abomasnow actually helps out Heatran quite a bit too, since it resists both ground and water, which are 2 of Heatran's 3 weaknesses. And you'll also see why this anti-fighting theme was very important, because Heatran and Mega Abomasnow are both weak to fighting. So what Heatran does is it's able to handle the steel and fire types that Mega Abomasnow really doesn't like. Heatran does have access to coverage for those Pokemon with Earth Power and Stone Edge, Ancient Power. It's a really good Stealth Rock setter, so that gives me my second rocker. It's got really good utility moves, things like Magma Storm for trapping, Taunt's a really good move, Roar for phasing, Will-O-Wisp. Fast Will-O-Wisp users are fantastic. It's also got Lava Plume that can help burn things. It's also a really versatile Pokemon, really well-rounded stats. You want a physically defensive, especially defensive, offensive. You want a physical set. I ran Mixed Heatran 1 week. It has a lot of item diversity, and this is something people don't really consider, I think, a lot in drafting, is how many items a Pokemon can run. But you never have any idea what item Heatran's going to be using. Assault Vest, Leftovers, Shookaberry, Choppleberry, Choice Specs, Choice Scarf, Air Balloon. I think I ran every single one of those items at some point this season. It's got a pretty respectable base speed at 77. If you throw on a Scarf, you're going to be outspeeding most things. You're going to outspeed a lot of breakers. You got the speed you need often. And it synergizes fantastically with my Togekiss. Togekiss being that flying fairy. Heatran. It's a 4 times resist to ice, 4 times resist to steel, and a poison immunity, which really helps out my Togekiss. And Heatran also appreciates Togekiss because Togekiss is a 4 times fighting resist, one of Heatran's weaknesses, and it's also a ground immunity, which Heatran is 4 times weak to. And so for my 4th pick, I got Cofagrigus. Now Cofagrigus, I might have drafted a little early. This is round 4, and I'm getting a tier 4. But all the ghost types were getting taken this round. Like 4 ghost types got drafted back to back. And Cofagrigus, I felt, was really important for my team. Because with that mummy ability, that ghost type, just really topped off the anti-fighting theme that I needed on my team. I was able to check a lot of Pokemon that were going to be really threatening to me, like Mega Charizard X, with the mummy taking away the Tough Claws ability. Mega Lopunny, I could get rid of the Scrappy ability. Mega Metacham, it doesn't want to click High Jump Kick into Cofagrigus. It could also take away that Pure Power. So those are a lot of Pokemon that I was thinking about as I was drafting, and I wanted to make sure I had answers to. So Cofagrigus is a fantastic Trick Room setter, which is really good for my Mega Abomasnow. And also, Cofagrigus does have that 95 base special attack that access to setup moves like Calm Mind and Nasty Plot. So Cofagrigus can be its own Trick Room sweeper, which is really valuable to have both the sweeper and the setter in one Pokemon. It's got really good utility options like Will-O-Wisp, Toxic Spikes. You can haze things, you can knock off items. It does have some recovery and Pain Split, but that's not very reliable. It doesn't have the most coverage moves, but it has workable ones with the Energy Ball, Grass Knot, Psychic, and Dark Pulse. And it really appreciates the potential of Wish support from Togekiss. Cofagrigus doesn't have reliable recovery, but it has a really low HP stat, so it can get a lot of recovery from Togekiss's wishes, even though Togekiss's base HP isn't that high. But because Cofagrigus is so low, if you can pass that recovery, you can get a lot back. I think it's the perfect partner Pokemon for Mega Abomasnow because it does resist Bug, resist Poison, it's immune to Fighting. Those are 3 of Mega Abomasnow's weaknesses. The special mention has to be made to Jellicent, which I think would have also been a fantastic pick here, but Jellicent was taken the pick right before me. Jellicent would have also formed a Fire, Water, Grass core with my Heatran and Mega Abomasnow. But the one thing that Jellicent wouldn't have done is Jellicent is not a Trick Room sweeper in itself, having that 60 base speed and not having the offenses that Cofagrigus does. So my next pick, I got Raikou. With my round 5 pick, Raikou is just an electric type. I really needed the speed here. With Mega Abomasnow being base 30 and me needing that Trick Room option, it was really important to get a nice speedy Pokemon. So Raikou's base 115 is really going to do the trick. It gives me momentum with Volt Switch, which my team didn't have much of at this point. I only had Mew with U-Turn or Volt Switch for momentum. It's really good for getting in breakers like my Mega Abomasnow. And it does have some good setup options in Calm Mind, and it's also a very good user of Substitute, especially with that pressure ability, very similar to Suicune in that respect. And it has a lot of coverage moves that other electric types don't often get. It's one of my issues with electric types is they often don't have the coverage to get through defensive cores. But Raikou has Aura Sphere. You have to run a Rash Nature for that, but Aura Sphere, very rare to have special fighting move that isn't Focus Miss. It's nice to have a reliable fighting move. Signal Beam can be really good for grass types. It's got Shadow Ball and also Extra Sensory. So that can hit a lot of the electric resist and immunities much harder than with a hidden power. And it can also free up a move slot for you to have a different hidden power. For example, I faced a team with a Nidoking and a Ferrothorn. so it's able to run extra sensory for the Nidoking and still have hidden power fire to really smack that Ferrothorn, which is really nice. It's got some cool utility options. It does have Roar and Thunder Wave, so you can run a more supportive Raikou. It does have a really nice Spadef stat as well, which makes it really nice mid-ground play to switch into electric types. And it does have access to Weather Ball, be really good for stepping up the Bolt Beam coverage, because with Weather Ball and Hail that my Mega Abomasnow provides, I want to say it's like 100 base power, so it's like having an even stronger Ice Beam, which could really terrify ground types. And it does form a really nice offensive duo with Mega Abomasnow, since they do together form Stab Bolt Beam. And Mega Abomasnow is able to break and pressure those bulky grass and bulky ground types that Raikou really doesn't appreciate. It's also a really good Z-move user. I did make this my other Z-Captain in addition to Mew, which allowed Raikou to have a lot more breaking potential in itself as well, so they didn't have to rely on the breaking of Mega Abomasnow. For my next pick, I got Suicune. Suicune is a pretty cool Pokemon. I didn't have the best time using it personally, but it's a nice bulky water, which is a really strong archetype in Draft League format. You know, Scald, Burns. Burn is really good. As you saw, I have 3 Will-O-Wisp users already. Burn is really good, especially on faster Pokemon like Suicune. You can burn it before it hits you. You can turn those 2-hit KOs into 4-hit KOs. It's got really cool utility options, and Roar specifically is the main one used, but does have access to Tailwind as well. And setup, you know, Calm Mind, Suicune, Crocoon is really popular. Sub is also really good on Suicune. I did run Vincoon at one point, which is a substitute Calm Mind, Protect, Scald. That pressure ability, you can PP stall important moves like Power Whips. It's really capable of shuffling around teams as they struggle to switch into it, especially if you have Roar and Stealth Rocks. Really nice for wearing things down, for things like Raikou to clean up at the end. And it does also appreciate Wish support from Togekiss. While Suicune's base HP is higher, just having the ability to pass recovery into this is really nice, since Suicune's only recovery is leftovers or rest, although it is a really good rest user. So for my next Pokemon, I got Reen the Flygon. You know, Flygon, I just put out a video on this. I love this Pokemon. It's that offensive ground type that I wanted to complement my Mega Abomasnow. Also works really well with my Raikou, because it forms a Volt Turn core with it, with access to U-Turn. It's got great setup options with Dragon Dance, you know, Power Up Punch, Hone Claws, also options. Really good choice user. I think this is a really valuable form of speed control, is having good choice users. It's got access to Defog. It's a really great defogger. It has Roost. It's an Edgequake resist, which was an issue for my team since my Steel type Heatran was also a Fire type, so it didn't resist Rock. It's 4 times weak to ground. It also has an Electric immunity and Ground immunity. It's nice to have 2 immunities in one Pokemon. You can help get in free switches. And it forms a really great Fairy Dragon Steel Core with my Togekiss and my Heatran, because my Fairy and my Dragon are both immune to ground, which is the biggest threat to my Heatran. It's also got a really good speed tier at base 100. I did have Mew at base 100 already, but you know, people will sometimes prep for a more slower Mew. And I felt like just having that reliable base 100 that can run offensive sets all the time, it's really nice to have. We got Death Blossom, the Alola Muck. Shout out to Reaper in Overwatch. So this was a dark type that is not weak to fighting, and still have that fear of fighting types in my mind here. Alola Muck has an incredibly solid defensive typing with the Dark Poison, so it only has 1-2 times weakness to ground. It's a really great Fairy Killer, which I think is important. There's a lot of bulky fairies out there that people have a lot of difficulty breaking. You know, things like Clefables and Sylveons and such. It's a grounded poison that can absorb T-Spikes, which is always valuable. It's got Stab Knockoff, as I mentioned, one of the hardest moves to switch into in the game. It is one of the premier Pursuit Trappers, and a great Assault Vest user as well, which is really good for supporting things like my Mew, getting rid of offensive Ghost types, and if I'm running an offensive Mew, getting rid of bulky Psychic types as well. Can help support my Cofagrigus in the same way. It's got really cool coverage options like the Elemental Punches, Brick Break, and Stone Edge. It does have some priority in Shadow Sneak, which I did run a couple of times. It's got setup options in Curse. Really good Curse user. As I mentioned, it's only got that one 2x weakness to ground, and most ground moves are going to be Earthquake. So if your opponent can only really break you with Earthquake and you boost up your physical defense with Curse, Alolan can really be cancerous to their team. And it does have access to recovery now with the access to recycle it gained in Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon with that gluttony, so you can keep that 50% healing in store and get it back. Does appreciate wish support from Togekiss, especially if you're running an Assault Vest set, because unless you're running the Gluttony Recycle set, you don't have recovery. And it's a really great Dark and Ghost resist, which is really nice since Mew and Cofagrigus are two integral pieces of my defensive core. It's really important to have a really great switch into those typings. Next, I got Lichao, the Hitmonlee. Hitmonlee is not a great Pokemon, not gonna lie, but I thought it was the fighting type that I needed at the time. In hindsight, I might have drafted something else, but I valued the ability of Hitmonlee to run a Choice Scarf because I didn't have a lot of good Scarf users at this point in time. So it's a fighting type, so I think are important in Draft League format because of the bulky normals that do exist. Things like Porygon 2, Blissey, Chansey, Miltank. And it also threatens bulky Steel types, which my Mega Abomasnow doesn't like. And I noticed that my team was really weak to Sand cores, and fighting types are really important for that. So Hitmonlee was able to threaten Rock types and Sand cores. That could be really tough for my team to deal with. Because at this point in time, Flygon had been my only Rock resist, since my Steel type doesn't resist Rock. It does give me another form of hazard control with Rapid Spin, though it's not a very good spinner. It does have very powerful Stab and Reckless High Jump Kick. It has access to Close Combat as well if you don't want to risk that. It's got the Unburden set with the Fake Out Normal Gem. It does have coverage moves, like Knockoff, Poison Jab, and Stone Edge to hit fighting resists. But it doesn't have the coverage moves you often want, because it doesn't have Ice Punch. It has Blaze Kick instead of Fire Punch. And Ice Punch has ice coverage is really valuable. But it has a pretty decent speed tier at base 87. This was going to stop base... No, it wasn't going to stop base 100. I already have base 100 Pokemon. But it filled in my speed tiers a little bit. Next we got Akri the Beartic. As I mentioned, Mega Abomasnow with that weather control can enable a Slush Rush Sweeper. And Beartic is the Slush Rush Sweeper that I wanted. And didn't want Alolan Sandslash because that would be another 4x fire weakness. And Mega Abomasnow is a lot more... No, Beartic's a lot more offensive than Alolan Sandslash. As many would ask, what have you got for a well-played Beartic? As it turned out, most of my opponents had a lot for Beartic. So that was unfortunate. But Beartic is a threat, especially if your team is pretty weak to Ice. So it does have Strong Stab and Physical Ice Stab and Icicle Crash. And it does have really handy priority in Aqua Jet. A lot of people don't know this, but that can be really good for opposing fire types. Like, I think I brought Aqua Jet, Beartic against a team that had an Infernape, for example. And it's got really cool coverage options. It's got fighting coverage in Superpower and Low Kick, Rock coverage and Stone Edge. It's got some moves that can be niche to break certain bulky Pokemon, like Play Rough, Shadow Claw, and Night Slash as well. It unfortunately doesn't have access to Earthquake, but it does have setup as well. It has Swords Dance, Hone Claws, Bulk Up, and Power Up Punch, which are all viable on Beartic in my opinion. And it does have some really cool, tech as well: Roar, Taunt, and Encore. So that Beartic is a really good speed control option. So I was able to make sure that I was the fastest Pokemon on the field. And lastly, I got Reaper, the Mega Abomasnow. So I already broke down what Mega Abomasnow provides, but I want to talk about what is it that I drafted that was going to make Mega Abomasnow effective on my team. My goals going in with supporting my Mega Abomasnow were hazard control, So I got Defog on Mew, Togekiss, and Flygon, and Rapid Spin on Hitmonlee. So I'd say that was a success. My Fire Check, got Heatran's Flash Fire, so perfect Fire Check. Speed Control, I got multiple Thunder Wave users, 2 Trick Room users. I got some Speed Setup users. Got my Slush Rush Beartic, good Scarf users, and a lot of strong priority. So you want having the speed advantage in a matchup is fantastic. But you got to recognize that it's not all about the speed stats. And these aspects of my team were able to make it so that I was the faster Pokemon, even though my base speed was lower. I got those fighting checks that I needed with my Mew, my Togekiss, and my Cofagrigus. And I got that complementary offensive ground type in Flygon. Even though some people don't like Flygon, I think Flygon is great, and it definitely fit my team perfectly. So here is my roster that I won the Season 2 championship of the Kirby Street League with. You know, all these wonderful sprites here. So the Detroit Craggyzers, this season we had a really fearsome defensive core. I'm a balanced player mostly, though I also like bulky offense. I did bring some very offensive builds in this season, and I would think I really took advantage of the versatility in that sense. I had really great priority, tons of setup options all over my team. That really strong Wall Breaker and Mega Abomasnow, which forces a lot of prep out of your opponent. I think this was a really strong aspect out of my team, is how much prep certain Pokemon on my team force. You know, how are you going to prep for Mew? How are you going to prep for Mega Abomasnow, which is going to fire off Blizzards and Wood Hammers? How are you going to prep for Togekiss, which can Paraflinch your whole team? You know, how are you going to prep for Suicune, which could just, you know, Calm Mind up on you, or, you know, sub, and you can't even break its sub anymore because it burned your grass type. You know, it's a lot that my opponents had to prep for, and if they over prepped for one thing and didn't prep that hard for another thing, if I brought that, they're going to be screwed. I got a lot of other capable breakers on my team. Mew is one of the premier stall breakers. My team, Mega Abomasnow was my only real breaker Pokemon for the most part, but I had Pokemon that I could turn into breakers of specific things. Mew with that very fast taunt, it's a great stall breaker. Togekiss can be a really effective balance breaker with that Air Slash. I ran Metronome Togekiss a couple of times and flinched down a Umbreon. It's really nice. Heatran, Specs Heatran hits like a truck, especially with Eruption. That could be a really effective wall breaker. I had some nice cleaners in Flygon, Beartic, and I'd also like to mention Raikou here. And I was capable of a lot of different modes on my team. You know, balance is my default play style, but I was also able to brave things like semi-stall since I had so many defensive Pokemon. I was able to bring Hail offense with my Beartic, also Trick Room offense with my Cofagrigus, my Mega Abomasnow, Mew. Heatran also very good under Trick Room, since you get access to Eruption with that quiet nature, which is a minus speed plus special attack nature. And if people don't prep for the min speed Heatran, it can underspeed things like base 60s, for example. And a lot of people won't have Pokemon slower than that, believe it or not. At least not many. And I got all the types in game except for Rock, Bug, and Normal, which I don't think are very important typings to have in Draft League format. Though Normal is pretty good for checking ghost types, but I have Alolan Muck to take care of that. So what regrets did I have? I got sniped a lot this draft, so there's definitely some Pokemon I wish I could have gotten instead of the stuff I got, namely Hitmonlee. I only have 2 Stealth Rock setters, but my Stealth Rock setters are really solid in Mew and Heatran. Those are Pokemon that can come every week. My team's pretty slow, but I have a lot of options as means of speed control to try to make up for that. A lot of my higher tier picks were really specially biased, but I think it just made it so that my lower tier physical mons were even stronger on my team. Things like Flygon were able to put in a lot of work because of all the special pressure that my other Pokemon put on. Togekiss is a pretty unreliable fairy type I found in prep. This has 5 weaknesses. It doesn't really make a great wall. Togekiss, I think, is more of a support Pokemon. I only had 3 Pokemon with momentum, but that's fine because it's a really bulky team. I can switch into things. My team was pretty vulnerable to knockoff. I was able to mitigate it often, but things like dark poison types, like a Drapion I played, were a really big issue. I couldn't really switch into knockoff plus poison jab. And yeah, Hitmonlee's bad. But overall, I was really happy with this draft. I really loved Mega Abomasnow. And what I'm going to try to do here with these next few uploads is try to show you how this draft played out, how my team functioned, and use my successful season as a learning tool for everybody. Try to understand how the metagame of Draft League Pokemon works and how you can improve in the format in all aspects: drafting, building, and battling. Anyways, hope you're all having a great day. This has been DL. Take care. Bye.